You are listening to the Heartland Author Podcast. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, I had the opportunity to interview Andrew Cloninger. Andrew is the author of the narrative haiku poetry book C6-C7, which is scheduled to be released next month. I'm here with Andrew Cloninger, who is the author of a narrative haiku poetry book titled C6-C7, which is a reference to the C6-C7 vertebrae. Andrew, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is really an honor, that's for sure. Thanks, Aaron.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. I'm originally from northern Michigan. I was born in Marquette, Michigan, which is way up north, near Lake Superior. And my parents, we moved out to upstate New York when I was 14, and I grew up in that area. And I still live out there, and so I live in the Finger Lakes region, which is near like Lake Ontario, and they have a bunch of little lakes and all that kind of stuff.
The Watkins Glen NASCAR racetrack, I think, is in the Finger Lakes region.
Absolutely, yeah. Watkins Glen is a big deal. That is a huge deal. Yeah, they have all kinds of races there too, not just NASCAR. They have
sports car races.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. One of the ones that I like to see there is the when they do the vintage MGs, like all the British cars. Those are pretty sweet, so I like checking that out. Yeah, it's pretty fun. And so growing up, I started writing probably intentionally probably in 6th grade, I think, is when I started. So what I would do is, there was this old, in my English class, they had this old, they had a bunch of like donated books and that kind of thing. And so they had this compilation. It had both British poetry authors, and it had English and American. And so what I would do is I'd go to the Carl Sandburg section, and I would copy out his form. Like I would copy out the poems like Chicago and some of the other ones that he did, and then also Robert Frost. And then I got really into T.S. Eliot. I checked out one of his big poems, Love Song for J. Alfred Petrarch, which is a pretty cool poem. So what I would do is I would just copy them out and learn the form that way, which is kind of an interesting way of doing it. And then in college, I took a modern poetry class, and I was introduced to an author named Bruce Weigel, who wrote a book called Song on Napalm, which is about his experience in Vietnam. And so after college, I was, I'm a musician, so I was doing that, and I was also working in light industrial, so I was doing a lot of warehousing, and I would set up sound systems and that kind of thing. I was a sound engineer as well, and so I was doing all this stuff, and then I was cutting wood at my uncle's camp, and I blew out my C6-C7. It was a bulging disc, and it was a very significant injury. It caused nerve damage in my left arm, and I couldn't play guitar. I was in a lot of pain, and I still am dealing with pain, but so I had to go to the chiropractor. I had to go to PT and OT and start that process, and then they decide. And I was also, at the time, I was very heavy weight wise, and because of the steroids and lifestyle and that kind of thing. And so I had to really work on reducing my weight. I lost like about 220 pounds.
Ooh.
And I was a linebacker. It was huge, and So I topped the scale at 420. I'm now currently in 197. So yeah, it was quite a significant, and it took me a couple of years to do it. But yeah, I was able to get my health in order, and so I decided to one of the things is when when you're laid up like that, you have a lot of time to think. And I think that one of the things that kind of came to me was that book, Song of Napalm, because for Bruce Weigel, it was a very significant and a very traumatic experience for him, and this was a very traumatic experience for me because it dealt with my identity. I used to be a very strong person. I could lift half a piano, no problem. I could do. I was very athletic as a younger man, and I was also very strong as an older man. And so, losing that kind of identity and that kind of being able to provide for my family that way was kind of devastating, and it was like a death. It was like a person that died. And I had to mourn that loss, but also find out who I really am. When there's fire, how are you going to be forged? Are you gonna be burned up, or are you gonna be better from it? And that was the goal for me, was to be better, and to understand my health better, to understand what I can do, and all that kind of thing. And so it was a very cathartic book to write, but also, it was also a healing book for me, and I hope it is for other people when it comes out in October. So, that's the big deal, is really, who are you after everything is stripped away, and that was kind of the question that I tried to answer, and also just, to tell my experience.
Okay, now I understand that your upcoming haiku poetry book, C6-C7, is a narrative poetry book.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I take you through the whole story, as far as I take you from the moment that I felt my neck give way to the end where I find a little bit of peace and a little bit of transcendence, and everything in between, from dealing from insurance companies to thanking people that helped us along the way. Some people that we don't even know. Some people, they gave us money. It was pretty routine to find $100, in the mailbox. Someone would just send, and we don't know who it was from, and we needed it. We were borrowing money to pay our bills because I wasn't working, and the insurance checks weren't coming in on time. So it was a very tough, it was a very strenuous, because not only am I trying to get better, but also, we got to know where the money's coming from, and it was tough, because even when you're on disability, your salary gets cut quite a bit. And so, that was really the big challenge, was to adjust our lifestyle, and also to adjust, to the new normal, and that was a tough situation to go through.
Now, how has your disability affected your ability to write and do creative projects?
So, the big thing that is I need a lot more time. So, the biggest thing is because of the way that the injury happened, it kind of wraps around my brainstem sometimes, and I need to get it adjusted. So what happens is I get really bad headaches, and I get shooting pains down my left arm. So luckily I have a team of doctors that help me with that, with the kinesiologist and some PT and OT stuff that I do. at home regularly. So yeah, focus is a big deal. Also, I have to incorporate a lot of rest in between activities. That's a big deal. The more rested I am, the better I am, and the more productive I am.
Now, Atmosphere Press is the publisher of your upcoming book. Is that your company, or is that the company you've submitted C6-C7 to?
Yeah, that is it is a hybrid press out of Austin, Texas. I submitted it to them, and they accepted it, and yeah, and it's coming out in October.
Now, tell us more about your passion for music and some music projects you've been involved in.
Sure. Yeah, I've been involved in music since I was a little kid. Actually, I would consider music to be my first passion, because I didn't understand, like, the first time that I was, my grandmother was a church pianist, and my father also played in church. He was a guitar player, and my cousin, he's an amazing drummer down in downstate Michigan, and so I had some great examples of musicianship and being exposed to it. And so later in my teen years, I combined both my writing passion and my music passion together, and I started songwriting and kind of taking some cues from Bob Dylan and the Beatles and some of these older, more established artists. And so and also I studied audio production in school, so that was kind of like my main thing for a long time. And so some of the projects that I'm doing now, I'm in an instrumental band. I play guitar, and my bandmate Melissa Davies, who's an amazing cellist, and so we play instrumental music, and it's quite healing, it's quite soothing, and so we play pretty regularly in the Rochester, New York area, which is pretty cool. We're always looking to expand, but that's kind of our home base. We have a residency out there, which is pretty cool. And big shout out to Red, White, and Brew. They're a great establishment out there. Stacy and Omar, they're really great people, and they put up with us every second Friday of the month, which is pretty awesome. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, we have a really good time. I actually kind of got off the road about 12, 13 years ago, so that my wife and I, we could, raise a family and, be a little bit more stable financially and that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of funny how things kind of went full circle, and I'm back playing music live, and, because I've always kind of worked on music at home, but, I'm actually playing live again, which is kind of an interesting thing. I didn't think that would happen, but it is, and I count every day as a blessing, because you never know when it's going to be taken away, and you don't know when, what you can do next, and that kind of thing. But yeah, in the past, I've been really fortunate. I've been able to open up for some great jazz musicians, like Charlie Hunter, and also some indie rock people like Father John Misty, and Unwed Sailors, another band that I opened for that was, fairly prominent in the indie rock world. And so, there's, it's kind of cool. And also, I've been able to produce some other people's music, which is pretty cool. And I also produce the music that we make now. And so if you want to check out our project, it's you can go to rencovemusic.com, which has all our stuff there. And and we're on Spotify and that kind of thing under Andrew Cloninger. So if you ever check that out, it's pretty cool music. It's instrumental. It's soothing, and I think people, they dig it. So, if you need some music to study to or read to, it's the kind of music to do that to. So it's kind of fun.
Now, what is your creative process?
That's interesting. For writing, I mull it over in my head. That's where it starts. It starts in my head. Like, I go through. Sometimes it's abstract. Sometimes it's like this book. It's a narrative type thing, and I just mull it over. I just go over different scenarios, and not everything ends up being on the page, But what I try to do is I try to boil it down to its essence. Minimal is kind of my thing. Is how many, I think, sometimes, you look at something like from the 17th century or 18th century, it's very verbose, and that's cool. That's a cool way to do it. But I'm kind of, I take cues from like Ernest Hemingway and some of these other people where it's like, let's get to the point. Let's try to figure out what the essence of the thing is. And so that's definitely what I tried to do with this book, is try to be as concise and to the point as possible.
Now, I have one final question. What is your favorite type of pizza?
Oh, man. Oh, we were just talking about this at home. That's funny, because I love pizza. That's hilarious. I am a big Chicago deep dish guy. So, because growing up in the Midwest, going to Chicago is a big deal. And so, for some people, it's like going to New York. And for me, of course, there's the chains like Pizzeria Uno and stuff like that. But there's other places, that I really like. And unfortunately, in New York, I live in upstate New York, so there's the New York pizza, and there is a place near us that they do Detroit deep dish, which is the closest we can get to Chicago. But it's tough. But I'm definitely a big deep dish Chicago fan. That's for sure.
And that's kind of interesting you mentioned Chicago deep dish, because I live in the east central part of Illinois, and deep dish pizza is basically non-existent here, and I'm only about 120 miles from Chicago, so...
That's crazy, man. That's absolutely crazy. Because I would think you guys would be, there'd be like at least one shop per place, and then everybody's got their favorites, That's crazy.
Yeah, this is an area where thin crust pizza seems to be more popular.
Interesting. Yeah, like the New York style, like the thinner, like you can hold it in one hand kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I like to be able to sit down and enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Well, Andrew, you are a very wonderful guest for this podcast, and I thank you for appearing on the Heartland Author Podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and this has been a blast. I'm glad we were able to figure everything out, and thank you. And I hope you guys check out the book C6-C7. It's coming out on Atmosphere Press October 3rd, and you can check it out at my website. It's www.andrewcloninger.com, or you can check out my music too, which is rencovemusic.com. So thank you so much. And I hope you have a great day.
I wish Andrew well with the release of his book. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/authoraac. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at AuthorAAC and on Instagram at AACScribe. Copyright 2023, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.